The cold wind swept through the quiet streets of a small town in Colorado, USA. Snow covered the sidewalks, and Christmas lights glowed in the distance. Yet inside a tiny apartment, 28-year-old Daniel Carter sat alone in complete silence. Just a month earlier, Daniel had lost everything he believed defined his life. The technology company where he had worked for 6 years announced unexpected layoffs, and his name was on the list. His savings disappeared quickly while paying rent, bills, and caring for his sick mother. Every morning he woke with the same question. God, why me? He had prayed faithfully since childhood. He attended church every Sunday. He helped neighbors whenever they needed him. Yet life seemed to reward everyone except him. One evening, overwhelmed by fear and disappointment, Daniel walked aimlessly through the snowy streets until he reached an old church standing quietly on the corner of the town square. The church doors were open. Inside, only a few candles burned near the wooden cross. Daniel slowly sat in the last row, lowered his head, and whispered, "Lord, I don't understand your plan anymore." Just then, an elderly pastor approached him with gentle eyes and a warm smile. "You seem troubled, son." Daniel nodded. "I've lost my job, my confidence, and maybe even my faith." The pastor sat beside him without speaking for a moment. Then he opened his Bible to the book of Isaiah and softly read, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." The pastor closed the Bible and smiled. "Daniel, sometimes God removes what we are holding so tightly because he wants to place something greater into our hands." Daniel looked confused. "But why does it hurt so much?" The pastor replied, "Because growth often begins where comfort ends." Those words echoed in Daniel's heart. The pastor continued, "Do you know the story of Joseph?" Daniel nodded faintly. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. If Joseph had judged God's plan only by his worst days, he would have believed God had abandoned him. The pastor paused before saying, "But every painful chapter was preparing him for the palace." Daniel remained silent. For the first time in weeks, hope quietly entered his heart. Before leaving, the pastor handed Daniel a small piece of paper. Written on it were only 5 words: "Trust God before you understand." That night, Daniel placed the paper beside his bed. The next morning, nothing had changed. His bank account was still nearly empty. His job was still gone. His problems were still real. But something inside him had changed. Instead of complaining, he prayed. Instead of worrying all day, he updated his resume and applied for new opportunities. Instead of isolating himself, he volunteered at the local food bank, helping families who were struggling even more than he was. Weeks passed. Rejections arrived one after another. Every email seemed to say the same thing: "We have selected another candidate." Discouragement returned. One afternoon, Daniel almost gave up. As he prepared to close his laptop forever, his eyes fell once again on the small paper beside his desk. "Trust God before you understand." He smiled weakly. That evening, he opened his Bible and read Romans 8:28. "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." Daniel realized something important. Faith is not believing that life will always be easy. Faith is believing that God is still good even when life is difficult. The following week, while serving meals at the food bank, Daniel met a businessman named Michael Reynolds. Michael noticed Daniel's kindness, leadership, and calm attitude. After talking for nearly an hour, Michael asked, "What do you do for work?" Daniel smiled. "I'm searching for my next opportunity." Michael handed him a business card. "My company needs someone exactly like you. Come see me Monday." Daniel thanked him politely, not expecting much. But on Monday morning, something extraordinary happened. The interview lasted less than 30 minutes. By the afternoon, Daniel received an offer that paid more than his previous job, offered flexible hours, and allowed him enough time to care for his mother. Tears filled his eyes. Not because he finally had a job, but because he finally understood something far more valuable. God had never abandoned him. He had simply been leading him toward something better all along. Daniel drove home that evening with tears of gratitude streaming down his face. The snow-covered mountains looked more beautiful than ever before. The same roads that had once felt lonely now reminded him that God had been walking beside him every step of the journey. His mother smiled as he shared the good news. "I told you," she whispered, holding his hand. "God's delays are never God's denials." Those words settled deep into Daniel's heart. Months passed, and Daniel became one of the most trusted employees in Michael's company. But success did not change him. Instead, it reminded him of the days when he had nothing except faith. Every Saturday morning, Daniel continued serving at the local food bank. One cold winter afternoon, he noticed a young man sitting alone outside the building. His shoulders were bent, his eyes filled with hopelessness. Daniel walked over gently. "Are you okay?" The young man sighed. "I lost my job. My family depends on me. I don't think I can keep going anymore." Daniel recognized that look immediately. It was the same pain he had once carried. Instead of giving a long lecture, Daniel shared his own story. He spoke about sleepless nights, unanswered prayers, rejection letters, fear, and the day he almost gave up. Then he pulled out the same folded piece of paper he had kept in his wallet for months. The words had become slightly faded, but they were still clear. "Trust God before you understand." The young man read the message silently. Daniel then opened his Bible and read from Joshua 1:9. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Sometimes hope does not arrive through miracles. Sometimes it arrives through someone who has already survived the storm. The young man's eyes filled with tears. "I needed to hear this today." Daniel smiled. "So did I. Every single day." Years later, people often asked Daniel the secret behind his peaceful heart. He always answered with the same words. "My life changed the day I stopped asking, 'Why is this happening to me?' and started asking, 'Lord, what are you teaching me through this?' Because hard times do not come to destroy us. They come to strengthen our faith, shape our character, and prepare us for blessings we cannot yet see." If you are facing a difficult season today, remember these truths. God sees every tear you cry. God hears every prayer you whisper. God knows every burden you carry. And even when you cannot see His hand, you can always trust His heart. The night may seem long, but morning always comes. The storm may be fierce, but it will not last forever. Keep praying, keep believing, keep moving forward. Your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Never forget, when life becomes difficult, don't lose your faith, because God's greatest blessings often begin where your greatest struggles seem to end. Daniel's testimony soon spread beyond his small town. Churches invited him to share how God had transformed his darkest season into a story of hope. Every time he stood before an audience, he held up the same worn piece of paper and smiled. "Success didn't change my life," he would say. "Trusting God did." One Sunday after the service, an elderly woman approached him with tears in her eyes. "My son walked away from God years ago," she said. "Today, after hearing your story, he told me he wants to come back to church." Daniel looked toward heaven and silently thanked God. He finally understood that the pain he had once tried to escape had become a blessing for countless others. That evening, he opened his Bible again and read Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. He closed the Bible and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for never giving up on me, even when I almost gave up on myself." Life was not perfect after that. There were still challenges, unexpected setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. But Daniel no longer measured God's faithfulness by his circumstances. He measured it by God's promises. Whenever fear tried to return, he remembered every prayer God had already answered. Whenever doubt knocked at his heart, he remembered every door God had already opened. Whenever loneliness surrounded him, he remembered that God had promised, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And that promise was enough. If you are reading this while going through a difficult season, don't let temporary pain convince you that your future is hopeless. The chapter you are living today is not the end of your story. God is still writing. Keep trusting. Keep praying. Keep believing. One day, you will look back and realize that the season which almost broke you became the season that built you. Because God's timing is always perfect. His plans are always greater than our understanding. And His love never fails. Remember this whenever hard times come. God's silence is not His absence. God's delay is not His rejection. God's discipline is not His punishment. And your struggle is not your final destination. Hold on to your faith. Your miracle may be only one prayer away. The darkest night always ends with the sunrise, and those who continue to trust God will never walk alone. If this Bible story touched your heart and strengthened your faith, please like, comment, and subscribe to Bible Glow. Share this message with your family, and